A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third session of Wadilo na Wichar. I have a special guest for you this session. He is a very distinguished professor, Professor Gulamabbas by Shivji. But before I introduce him to you, I want to shout out for those people who reached out and encouraged me or gave me some good tips on how to do this better. So thank you all. Feedback is always appreciated. Asan. Now let us welcome Professor Shivji. Thank you so much for taking the time and effort to sit down with us and share your wisdom.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Professor, let's start off with where were you born and how old are you?
Okay. I was born on March 11th, 1938. I'm 86 years old.
MashaAllah. And you were born in?
Zanzibar.
MashaAllah. So, is it appropriate to call you a Jangbari at this point?
Yes, definitely.
Professor, from Zanzibar to here, give us a brief synopsis of what occurred.
Okay. I left Zanzibar in 1958. Okay.
At the age of?
About 20 years, yeah. I went to study at the University of London because Zanzibar needed physics teachers, physics and math teachers. That's the reason I was given a scholarship.
The government paid for everything.
Yeah. It wasn't my preference to study that. I wanted to go into medicine because before that, I was a compounder at the Gulamabbas dispensary in Zanzibar. Okay, so
by a compounder, you mean a pharmacist or a chemist? Or?
Well, mixing all the medicine in the bottles that you took home.
Okay, excellent.
So anyway, it didn't work out because the Zanzibar government felt that there were a lot of doctors in Zanzibar. They could always get some more from India. And they didn't have enough physics teachers.
London University?
Imperial College.
Okay. Which is very prestigious, I understand.
Yes.
So, am I to understand that you are a brilliant student?
Well, I did well, yes.
After you finish your degree?
I did not finish my degree I finished my bachelor's degree, but I was starting on a PhD and I got an offer to come to the States to do my PhD at a very good university called Johns Hopkins University, which is in Baltimore, Maryland.
Again, very well known. So before you proceed, Tanzanian government was willing to support you for, just...
I got no support from Tanzanian government for anything.
Okay, but they sent you?
No, they didn't. It's the British government that did.
And why would the British government do
because they were still ruling Zanzibar.
It was still under British protectorate.
The British left in 1964, and this is 50s that I'm talking. Yeah.
So they wanted you to become a professor and then go back to Tanzania?
Yes,
okay. That was the plan.
That was the plan, yeah.
Okay, please proceed.
But
Johns Hopkins?
Yeah, Johns Hopkins. But the British didn't send me there. I was at Imperial College in London that the British paid for. Then I got a fellowship from the Rockefeller Foundation to go to Johns Hopkins in the U.S. to do a PhD. As you know, PhD stands for what? Firah wa dimagh. PhD is in physics and mathematics.
Okay.
But very special atomic, molecular, and plasma physics.
Okay.
But those are basic physics topics. My interest was to apply those to space. That's what I did.
Wonderful.
Yeah? Because the space around the Earth is mostly plasma, above 300 kilometers. It is no longer neutral. It has been ionized.
You sound like the actor from Swades.
Really?
Working for NASA. Very good.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, you were dealing with space, but I understand a glacier is named after you. So how is the space connected to the glacier?
Okay, when I was very active, this is about almost 10 years ago, that I started doing it. I had 6 observatories. There was one in Greenland, north. There was one in what is called Svalbard, which is 82 degrees north. One in Fairbanks, Alaska, where I work. And then I had 2 more, one in Nairobi, one in Kampala, and one at the South Pole in Antarctica. Okay? And because Antarctica is not there is no settlement at all.
Right.
I mean, I was just one of 2 or 3 people there. And because you are putting up with so much suffering to do the work there, the U.S. government recognized that by naming something after you.
Okay.
Now, what else would they name in Antarctica? What is that?
Glacier.
Glacier.
Just ice. Now, how big is this glacier that's named after you? And what exactly is it called?
It's called the Shivji Glacier.
The Shivji Glacier,
Yeah.
mashallah.
It's interesting you should bring this up. You must remember my brother Yusuf.
I do.
He was a comedian. So he calls me up. He said, Abbas, understand there is a Shivji Glacier. I said, yeah, I just found out. It was named 5 years ago, but I never cared to find out. Now I'm told there is a Shivji Glacier. I said, yeah, it's just called Shivji Glacier, right? I said, yes. Who told it is yours? I'm a Shivji too. It's my glacier. I said, Yusuf, I have bad news for you. Something called global warming may melt that.
Which is my next question.
Yeah.
How big is this glacier that's named
Oh, it's
after you?
huge. I don't remember the size of it, but it's a huge glacier.
So it's going to remain for a long, long time.
Yeah, you can find, if you just put Shivji Glacier in Antarctica on the world map,
Right.
it shows up on the world map.
How awesome. Okay. Following up with that, Professor, what advice would you give to the youngsters these days?
Well, we discussed this last time, we were together with the youngsters. We were talking about careers. This is about 2 years ago, I think.
Right.
And I pointed out that we need to make a contribution to science and technology rather than just becoming engineers and getting a job. We need to do something so we contribute to the advancement of knowledge. And you pointed out, yes, but the youngsters need to have an income first. And that becomes the problem, because when you are working on research, the income is marginal, very little.
Despite having a glacier named after
Yes,
you,
very-
the compensation was not adequate.
Actually, there was no compensation. I had to get grants to pay my own salary out of it. Yeah. And that is very difficult, extremely difficult. Yeah.
Yet you would still advise the same thing for the younger generation?
I would suggest when they are still in their early 20s or so, they should spend a couple of years doing that. I think it toughens you up, because life becomes very challenging. Whenever people say, hey, you become very successful in academia, I said, look, Einstein had a plaque on his desk, very small piece of board, and what was written on it? A genius is only 1% thing that you get from nature.
Right.
99% of it is hard work.
99% perspiration, 1%
Inspiration.
Yes,
Yep.
very good. Okay.
I think that's what I learned. You have to work hard to get anywhere.
Now, you were academically extremely successful. Is that because you're genetically blessed or because
I
you
think
were
it's hard
disciplined?
work. Just
hard work.
But very hard work.
And what made you such a hardworking person?
Because I needed money. I didn't have any income. I had a family. I got married at the age of 20.
Right.
And I had a child within a year. And I didn't have any income.
You were
So
hungry.
I had to work hard. So I didn't get it. When I graduated from Johns Hopkins, 1970, sorry. Everybody who was with me got a job. They didn't do as well as I did in my work, you see. And nobody would hire me.
Oh,
I had to work hard. And then I found a university said, oh, if you bring your own research money, then you can come here. Because the university is everywhere. When you get a research grant after a long fight, they take 50% of your overhead.
You were successful because you were hungry. You became super successful. Then what happened to your children? Were
Oh,
they as
They're doing reasonably well.
okay?
Yeah. My number one has been working as a very senior space engineer for, for a group that is sponsored by the Air Force, U.S. Air Force. Been working there 40 years.
Wow.
And all the big projects is given to him for designing the instruments. And number two is a physician. He's doing very well.
So the theory doesn't hold because they weren't hungry yet they did so well.
Yeah.
Why is that so?
Because they saw me, they saw the condition in which we all grew up, right? Yeah. The grandchildren are taking it a little easy.
When you came to America,
Uh-huh.
how was it? Was it culturally totally different? Because this was early 60s, right?
Very good question you asked. When we came to the U.S., my kids were still in their very early teens. They're like, I think one was 3, the other was 5 years, and the girl was a few months.
Oh, wow.
Okay. My boys went to school. At that time, the school in Baltimore, where I was studying at Johns Hopkins, my boys went to school. We were the only non-white kids in the class. And the kids looked at you, who are these people who are not white,
So different.
And the teachers called me and said, look, your boys are the only non-white kids we have in the class here. And they will suffer because of that. The other kids are going to,
Because they're different.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're different. So it is very important that they only speak English. Because if they spoke any other language, the other kids will give them even harder time. So don't talk to them at home in any other language except English. My boys until today don't know a word of Kiswahili or Gujarati or Hindi or anything. All they know is just English, English, English. Things changed later on. People said, no, you have to encourage kids to learn as many languages as they can, especially their mother tongue.
This came much
But they didn't care.
Yeah.
It was too late for them.
So speaking of languages, how many languages do you speak?
I'm not very fluent in any language, but Kiswahili is my mother tongue. This is what I studied in school. In fact, I point out to everybody that Mualim Abu Jumbe was my teacher.
Really?
Yeah. He became vice president.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. And so I speak Kiswahili, which is what we spoke at home. Of course, I went to Sir Ewan Smith Madrasa, which is a primary school.
Right.
All the teachers were from India.
Oh.
So I learned Gujarati there, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So the medium of education was Gujarati?
Well, the teachers mostly spoke in Gujarati. The medium was supposed to be English,
No.
but they didn't feel comfortable.
Right.
Yeah. So I remember when I was in high school, place called, getting into high school in Zanzibar was a fight. There was only one high school, the government boys secondary school. There were only 30 seats. Now there are a lot of kids from very rich family whose parents could not afford it, but manipulate to get them. This was a government school. I was the only one who Master Abdasul Kaku helped me, gave me private tuition to train me to get into high school. Had it not been for him, I would be maybe a clerk somewhere, perhaps. So I went to high school in Zanzibar, and under the British education system, when you are in high school, it's called secondary school, not high school. You have to study English, and you have to study your mother tongue also, whatever they decide is your mother tongue.
Okay.
So for most of the students, it was Gujarati. For me, it was Kiswahili. So there's a Hindu teacher, Master Nayak. I went to his class to study Gujarati. He said, "Tu isnashi છે. અહીંયાથી નીકળી જાતો. માલીમાં બુજુએ પાસે જાતો."
That's how he became your Swahili teacher.
He threw me out. He was right. I mean, I spoke Kiswahili, not Gujarati. So yeah, I studied.
So he said, "Tu isna sicho." Most of the students were Hindus.
a problem. Those who could afford it and couldn't make it to the government boys went to St. Joseph Secondary School. Yeah.
So how long were you in Zanzibar? 20
Yes.
years?
Yeah, I left in 58.
And at
I
that,
graduated in 56. But then I worked for the British government for 2 years in the
As?
town plan as a clerk in the town planning office, civil service. The British, the guy who helped me was the father of somebody you might know him, Murtaza Bae, you remember?
yes, sir.
His father is the one who was working in the British administration, very high up actually. He helped me get a job after I graduated from high school in 1956 in an office that had just been opened. It's called the Town Planning Office. And what the idea was that you just can't build a house anywhere you want. It has to be in a certain area and make sure that it doesn't create traffic problems. It was very interesting. So I learned something that this town planning was started by a Frenchman. His name was Le Corbusier.
Okay.
And he was alive at that time. And I always admired him that he came up with these wonderful ideas of how to build really nice cities so you don't have a clutter and a traffic problem. So I always tried to learn from him, but never managed. Then I found out that actually Le Corbusier was a good friend of Jawaharlal Nehru.
Ah.
So when Jawaharlal Nehru asked him to design the first planned city in the world.
Cannot be Mumbai.
No. It's in Punjab. Well, designed by Le Corbusier. And then later on he designed other places too. In fact, if you go to, I think, Ahmedabad or Ahmedabad, just north, there is a Gandhinagar. And Gandhinagar is also a planned city planned by Le Corbusier.
Very interesting.
He's a Frenchman. He was a Frenchman.
During that period in Zanzibar, who were the most influential Khojas?
Well, was my uncle, was one of them, my four.
What's his name?
The Karmalis. H.D. Karmali and M.D. Karmali. They had the representatives of the British General Electric. So they built all the government lights in the streets and government buildings. So anything electrical, you had to go through them.
Yeah.
Radios, lights, everything.
Oh, interesting. That's why the Karmalis in Dar es Salaam also came up with this electrical shop.
They are doing very well there.
Now, at that time, we didn't have Khojas who were successful businessmen in Zanzibar.
Oh, there were quite a few. Parents were business people, but they were not high level. You know, they were selling kangas and shukas, you know. But there were other people, trying to remember, the Karmalis were doing well, but there were about half a dozen.
James Jaffer and family.
James Jaffer, yes. They built that Kiwanjani.
Kiwanjani.
Yes. Yeah.
But despite having affluent Khojas,
Yes.
but their children were not attending high school with you. Why is that so?
I don't know. The interesting thing is that Zanzibar, there are quite a few, no, I won't say very well-to-do, but reasonably well-to-do. And there's this feeling that if you do something in the name of the Shia religion, you know, you get a good place in the heaven, I guess. So a lot of people who could afford it bought homes and put them out for rent, and the rent went to the community. But the income from that, yes, it was used for what? Yes. So there almost every day you could get a free meal, which was good for people like me who were very poor.
And maybe that is why this culture of eating at masjid became
Exactly.
so. During this time, there was only one masjid in Zanzibar?
No. We had to fight, right?
Already?
Yes.
It had begun?
It had become Nemesis and Junemesis.
And how old were you when this started?
Oh, it started before I was born.
Oh.
Yeah. It was way before I was born. Yeah. But,
And while you were growing up, Was it difficult to go to one mosque or the other?
Not for me. I'll tell you, now that you've asked that question, I'll tell you an interesting story.
Is it?
During one time where they have what's called Hazrat is Laddu, or, then at that time, it is not done on the same day, two mosques. One, the old mosque will do it first, then maybe a week later, and then when the old mosque does it, they expect everybody from the new mosque also to attend.
Right.
You know, I mean, we were not fighting, we were just talking. And then when the new mosque started, the people from the old mosque would come. Now in Zanzibar, most of us were very, very poor people, right? The way we dressed was, we walked without shoes. Couldn't afford shoes, man. The new Misfit people were financially a lot better off.
Right.
And there was somebody whose name I've forgotten, but he was the kind of a manager of the new mosque. And he would decide how much niyaz to cook to serve the attendees. And normally he did that when people come for the mosque. You know, there is a majlis for an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours with the master. He would count the shoes and say, aha, there are so many people.
That's how much food we will prepare.
Now, during the Laddu time, people from the Judy Misfit came in, and we did not wear shoes. So the guy counted the shoes, and he fell short.
How
And
interesting.
the Jamaat got mad at him. You embarrassed us. You didn't cook enough. People were hungry with us. I said, I counted the shoes.
How often did you go back to Zanzibar once you came here?
I haven't been back since 1958.
Ever? Why is that?
I don't know. I just don't know. Maybe because my work did not allow it, you know. When I got into Johns Hopkins, it's interesting, I should tell you this. My professor there, well, actually, I was the only non-white student at that time. And a lot of professors said, we don't want these non-whites. Finally, a fellow who was of Greek origin, but his father came from, he took me as a student. The guy was so famous that NASA gave him an airplane. The first airplane ever built, called Convair 990. Said, use this to make any space measurement you want from 30,000 feet above. I mean, we were looking at space way out, but we could do it from about 30,000 feet. So I was a student at the time. I said, okay, we put the instruments on the airplane, and we must have flown for about 2 years, not continuously. You know, you fly for a month, you rest for a week, then we must have done 10 million miles. The way we flew around around the whole earth, everywhere.
That cannot be cheap.
Government paid for it, right? They wanted work done. It was important work. But then I found out that this guy took me as a student, while all the others said no to me, because of a reason. That guy, his father came from Greece. When he came here, he was a brilliant fellow, really brilliant. So when he was in a kid, he was in elementary school, but he was also begging groceries at the first supermarket ever built in the U.S. It's called A&P, but you don't have that now. And then he would go to school at night. He had to raise money, to support his mother and father a little bit, because the father had TB or something. So, but he was so bright and so hardworking. He was in elementary school, and the people in the university said, "You are too smart for elementary. Go to the high school, to the secondary school."
Oh, they made him jump.
Jump into high school. He went to high school. He was doing so well, and you don't need a high school diploma. We'll take you to the university.
Wow.
Yes.
A boy genius.
He was a very young fellow. He went to the university. He was doing research so well that the Second World War broke out. This is 1938, the year I was born. Like the same month that I was born. I brought the war with me. Anyway, he was a student at that time, but he was doing so well. The United States Air Force said, we need you to come to the Air Force Cambridge Laboratory in Boston to become the head of the research laboratory there.
Wow.
Now, he goes there, he was a student, but he was doing so well. He goes there, he does an amazing job.
Okay.
At the end of the war, the Air Force wanted him to stay there, but John Saki said, no, you have to come back. I said, yeah, but how can I come back? I still don't even have a high school diploma. They said, we want to become a professor. I said, well, come on, this is crazy. You need a PhD to get a professor. Right. I don't even have a elementary school diploma. He was so bright that no elementary school diploma, no high school diploma, no college degree, no PhD. He was a professor.
Now, why did he take you as a student?
He just felt sorry for me because he went through the same.
At this age, if you were given an opportunity to do this all over again, what would you do different?
That's a really good question. Because I went into this field because of necessity. The Zanzibar government said, we'll give you a scholarship if you study physics, not because you don't have teachers. And I go into physics, the space program starts, and the British and the Americans all kind of encourage me.
Right. You're in the right.
Now, if I start all over again, there is no such condition. Right? I still think I may go into medicine.
Inshallah. Very good.
My son has become a doctor, but that's enough, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Professor, any parting thoughts to the community? Words of wisdom?
No, I just hope that our youngsters, whatever field they are in, once they graduate and they get a good job, they just don't stop there.
They should
continue to do some more academic work. Get a master's degree. You can do that in the evening. And the companies encourage you to do that. They will pay for it. We have been at the receiving end of all the good work and the technology that has been developed. We need to contribute to that, to the development. We should not be just the recipient of it. I think that's how it should be.
Yes.
I think this is what I told you last.
That's some very good advice.
Yeah. And it can be done. There are some of our youngsters who are doing very, very well. You remember Marhoom Mujtaba?
Yes, of course.
His brother is a professor of aerospace engineering in U.S.A.
So, Professor, what is this about Zanzibaris and education?
I think because we did not have much opportunity for anything else there. The education was the only way. See, on the mainland, the business was booming. People had shambas, land to grow things and export. Zanzibar, the only thing you could export there was cloves, right? And what do you think cloves were used for? Tell me.
I would imagine it's the same uses that we do now.
Spice.
Oil and spice. No?
90 or 99% of the cloves was bought out by Netherlands to take to Indonesia. Because Indonesians made cigarettes, tobacco mixed with cloves that had been ground. A big market, big market.
You are doing phenomenally well, and inshallah, I like you in this condition all along. But is there a secret to it, or is there a methodology?
I certainly believe that physical activity and diet control are the two things that help me. But I did not start because I wanted to do it. It's my childhood. Okay? I didn't have a bicycle. I didn't even have a pants to wear. You had to walk. For example, walking from Malindi to Saryu Speech Madrasa or to go to Forovani. There was a long walk, a couple of miles. You had to walk. It just became a habit with me because I had grown up just walking, no bicycle, nothing. That I walked 5-6 miles a day every day.
And when you moved to America, did that change your lifestyle? You started eating a whole lot cheese and all that?
Not really. I changed later on because, as I told you, when I was a graduate student, I traveled a lot. And you travel to different countries, you got to eat their food, right?
Right.
I remember I went to Norway. We had a big station in Norway. And Norwegians eat fish. They eat the kind of fish that I don't like. You know, it's fishy. So one day they had a big Norwegian festival. And I was invited to go there. I went there and I met the chef who cooks at the place where I was a student. And he said, how do you like our food? I said, yeah, the food is good, but it's fish. Daily, every day, in and out. Now this is north, in northern Norway.
Right.
Okay.
Cool.
Very cold place. And Norwegians, fish is good for you, you know. And that's what they eat all the time. So he said, oh, okay, tomorrow you'll have something different. Now looking at me, he just said, must be a Mohini, Indian guy, right? Guess what he cooked?
Which day?
A whole huge bucket of rice. He stayed there for a month because I was the only one eating. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You have to adjust. Wherever you go, you got to eat. Yeah. You can't say, oh, when I was at South Pole, I was one of only 3 people there. Huh? There was no halal food. Huh? And even beef, they wouldn't bring it. So I had to eat vegetables. Sometimes you'll get chicken and beef, but not halal.
Tin tuna?
No.
None of that. Not of that.
So sometimes say, yeah, this is the only thing available. What do? Starve? You can't do that.
Professor, if your grandson were here
Yeah,
and these were your last words to him,
yeah.
what would you tell him?
Work hard.
Work hard. Work hard. Awesome.
Yeah, work hard. There is no substitute for hard work.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, success comes from hard work.
Excellent advice.
Yeah, thank you.
Professor Asante Sana, thank you.
Thank you very much.
The whole community thanks you for it.
Thank you very much.
Asante.